I'm We are recording now. So I'm going to start off by just saying thank you very much for coming. This shouldn't take too long. We just wanted to go through some of the expectations of what it means to present at NRHC, how much time you have, what can you expect, how do you field questions, how do you field tough questions, and any questions that you might have. So I'm going to introduce myself, then I'll turn it over to my colleague and friend, Dr. Polly, to introduce herself, and then I'll say a few words, and Dr. Polly and I'll say a few words about what it means to present at NRHC, what you can expect. In addition to the presentations, I'll say a little bit about New Haven and things like that, and then we'll open it up for questions. So, first of all, can everyone hear me okay? Va bene. Okay. So my name is Andrew Martino. I am in the English department. I'm a professor of English. I have just stepped down as dean of the Clark Honors College after 8 years and gone back to English so that I can finish a book. I have been involved in honors both regionally and nationally for 20 years now. This is my 20th year. So I am incoming president of the NRHC. This is my second time. Strangely enough, 2016 was the last time I was incoming president when we did the conference in Cambridge, Massachusetts. So that's who we are. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Polly to introduce herself.
Hi, I direct the Martinson Honors Program at the United States Air Force Academy. I have a long history in the Northeast, which is why I'm also in this region, and also a professor of English. So we've done a lot of presentations, and we're here to help.
So both of us are in the humanities, and when you're presenting with the humanities, it's slightly different than if you're presenting with, say, the hard sciences or even the social sciences for that matter. There is really no hard and fast rule about presenting. We want you to do what feels most comfortable to you. The first thing I will tell you is it is a very friendly atmosphere that you're going into. People are really interested to hear what you're researching and how you're presenting that research. They will have some questions for you after. And if you don't have questions, that doesn't mean that your paper was necessarily bad. It just means that they might not have gotten to you for questions or you've explained it or anything to that effect. So if you don't get any questions at the end, don't take it personally. That happens to everybody. There is such a thing as over preparing. So you do want to prepare. Sorry, I'm also admitting people at the same time. You do want to prepare. I would go over your presentation a couple of times, maybe to your roommate or, do it in the mirror. I think it is important to talk it out loud a couple of times, just kind of rehearse it, the main points that you want to say, just so that you get the timing down right. So, you will be presenting orally at the NRHC, which means that you have somewhere between 12 minutes and 20 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm sorry, 12 minutes and 15 minutes to speak. You are going to be on a panel of four others. So it'll be you and
Three
three
others.
other people. So there'll be four panelists. If you find yourself on a panel of three people, then you may take up to 20 minutes. Most of the questions will be saved for the end. So what we like to do is have all of the panelists go first. Each panelist will give his or her or their presentation, and then we'll have questions at the end of that. There will be a table up front, so you'll all be sitting at that particular table front and center. There will be AV equipment available in all of the rooms. So if you are doing a PowerPoint or a slideshow or some kind of video or something, there will be opportunities to do that. I would suggest if you are doing that, two things, very important. Number one, get there a little bit early so that you can preload, right? And this will be dependent on the moderator. You want to make sure that you preload it. I would do it two ways. Put it on a thumb drive, but also email it to yourself. So if something goes awry, you'll have it in two sections. Does that make sense to everybody? If for some reason, and this happened to one of my students last year, that it doesn't load or something, make sure that you have a contingency plan to still go forward with your presentation, even if some kind of, something happens with the PowerPoint. things that go awry with technology all the time. Part of you as an honor student is being able to pivot, right? How do I handle this if something goes awry? And you know your research better than anybody in the room. So don't let it sort of trip you up and get you off your game. Just go through it as if you still had your presentation. 9 chances out of 10 this won't happen, but as I said, it did happen to one of my students. And he fumbled for the first 2 minutes, and then he got his stride and he was able to do it. So have it on 2 locations. Email it to yourself so that if the thumb drive doesn't work or something to that effect, you can always get it through your email. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. The second thing is, again, I want to just reiterate the time, right? So you want to make sure that you stick to the 12 minutes. You want to be able to fill up those 12 minutes as best you can. So you may want to have bullet points, or you may want to have talking points. We tend to tell presenters you don't necessarily want to read verbatim, but if you feel more comfortable, I don't have a problem with that. Dr. Polly and I are both, as I said earlier, in the humanities, and when we go to presentations, we usually read the paper that we're presenting. So I would say, however you feel comfortable in presenting that information is the way that you should do it. There's, again, no hard and fast rule. You won't be judged if you read your presentation to the group, or if you work off a PowerPoint, or if you don't work off a PowerPoint. You want to give your research as clearly and effectively as possible. That means you want to feel comfortable in the room. Again, it's a very friendly audience. Students are there to support one another. It's a great way to sort of, if you're presenting for the first time, or if you're presenting for the third or fourth time as an undergraduate, this is a great way to add to your expertise in the actual presentation of your research. So with all of that out of the way, I will say that again, if there are only 3 presenters, then you feel free to take up to 20 minutes, and then we'll have questions. Some of the questions will be mainly geared towards one person. Some of them may be spread out among all of them, all of you as presenters. There's no really easy way to tell. But we try to give everybody at least one question in the room, especially if I'm moderating. I'll try to ask everybody one question if it's not coming from the audience. If you get a tough question that you don't know the answer to, it is perfectly okay to say, I'm not sure, or I don't know the answer to that, but I'll take that into consideration when I'm continuing my research. Part of the idea of research, it's a process of discovery, right? You're not coming in as the kind of expert, and this is, I've got 30 years of experience and this is my life's work. You're new undergraduates, and I don't want you to put aside the importance of the imagination and curiosity for sounding a little bit more as an expert. Think of yourselves as amateurs rather than experts, because there is something infectious about that, right? That you're all part of that discovery of whatever knowledge you happen to be presenting on. Whenever possible, we try to put like sort of themed presentations together so that that panel will have even if it's very loose, the papers will be about the same kind of theme. So, it may come out that 4 of you are presenting, we put together a great panel, and, all 4 papers went together really well. Other panels, maybe one will stick out that it wasn't quite, fitting in with the other 2 or something like that. That's okay. That's not necessarily a big deal. I would stand while you're giving your presentation. There will be podiums. You want to make sure that you're making eye contact with the audience. Body language is really important, right? If you're bored and you're coming off like, with your arms folded, that's not going to engage the audience. No matter how great your research is, and it probably is great, this is performative. So when you're going and you're talking with people, you really are selling your research. This is what I did, and this is how I'm presenting it. I want to make sure that you're as excited about it as I am. So keep that in mind. You are excited about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be going to NRHC. You want that excitement to come through. So pay attention to your body language, right? Make sure that you're trying to look at the audience. Now, most of us get really nervous when we're presenting, and that's okay, right? My favorite musician, Miles Davis, said, if you ain't nervous, you ain't paying attention. So that's not a bad thing, right? You don't want, however, to allow those nerves to get the best of you and cripple you, as it can sometimes, right? Just remember, it's a friendly audience. We're there to support you, and you know your work. So you want to make sure that you're performing it in that particular way. If you get nervous by making eye contact with the audience, an old and dear colleague of both Dr. Pauly and I, his name was Charles Wilbur, used to tell me, look at people just above their eyes so that you're not looking at their eyes, but you're kind of looking just above their head, almost as if you're playing pool and you're looking at the cue ball, but you can see the other balls. That way, you're not going to get tripped up by looking into somebody's eyes, and that might make you nervous. Everybody there is nervous. If they tell you they're not nervous, they're lying, right? I just told you that Dr. Polly and I have been doing this for probably 30 years now. I still get nervous when I do a presentation. I'll be moderating some of your presentations. I'm going to be nervous as moderator. That's part of, anytime you get in front of people, that's part of what it is. But again, we try to make it a friendly atmosphere. So, there's that. So performative quality, you want to make sure that you're paying attention to your body language. You want to try, if you are reading your paper, to look up occasionally and make, if you're not making eye contact, you're looking just above the head of somebody. Now, the next thing is, what do you wear? When you're giving your presentation, I would suggest that you wear business casual. And what business casual means, because there's a couple of different ways. You're not so dressed up as if you're going to an interview, but you're also not going to a club, right? So you want to wear something professional. That means, guys, you don't necessarily have to wear a tie. You don't necessarily have to wear a jacket, but I wouldn't wear a t-shirt, a graphic t-shirt, right? Ladies, if you're wearing something, you may want to wear a skirt or a dress or a blouse or something like that. Whatever you feel comfortable in, but it should look professional. Does that make sense to everybody? But again, not so formal that you're going to a job interview or something like that. There's a lot of, today's fashion is kind of topsy-turvy. So you just want to make sure that you're looking professional to give your presentation. A lot of how you look and how you conduct yourself says a lot about who you are. So again, you know this as well as I do. You don't get a second chance to make a first impression. So you want to make sure that you're going in friendly, you're going in like you're eager to talk about your research, and you look professional. Does that make sense to everyone? Dr. Polly, do you agree with that, or am I
Yeah.
completely off base?
No, that's right on. The only
Yeah.
thing I would add is you're not supposed to, none of us are I mean, some of us are supposed to be experts in our field, but none of us are 100%
Right.
experts in our field. So when we're presenting research, there's always the presumption that it is ongoing. So don't be afraid to kind of suggest where there are tensions in your research, or you still have questions, or it's not complete, because the idea is some people in the audience might actually help you
Yeah.
with push some of that. So for example, there are times when I say, I'm still thinking about this, or if you have any ideas about where I might take that idea, when we get to the question period, I'd love to hear from you. That makes it sound more organic and as if you're actually integrating other people into a conversation rather than just saying like, I'm an expert and you all should hear about my
Right.
great work with algae or something. Because all of this, the idea is that it's ongoing and iterative.
Correct. Yeah, and I'm really happy you said that about there's moments where especially my students sometimes feel, not all of my students, but some of my students feel that they have to have their research complete when they're going to a conference. You don't, right? Research is a work in progress. So when you're doing research, what you're doing is essentially entering into a scholarly conversation. And as Dr. Pauly said, you want to make sure that you're taking feedback so that when you do the final paper for whatever it is you're working on, you can incorporate some of those good ideas. Most of the time, somebody who has no idea maybe about what your field is might have an insight that it never would have occurred to you. Those are what Orson Welles used to call happy accidents. So make sure that you're paying attention to those happy accidents that do occur from time to time. What will happen is usually the moderator, and this depends on really the moderator's style, and all moderators have different style, but the moderator 9 times out of 10 will introduce the speakers either all at once or as each speaker is going up. That might be something, if the moderator doesn't introduce you, then I would certainly introduce yourselves, saying what your name is, what university or college you're from. And I think it's always a good idea to give the title of your paper at the beginning too, even though it's in the program. I always like to start off that way. The title of my paper is, or the title of my research is, and then you can go into your particular presentation that way. But it's a way to bridge that sort of what could sometimes be an awkward moment from first standing up to how do I start this thing. At the end, equally important is a lot of students won't realize that the audience doesn't necessarily know when you're finished. So I think a good way to do that is there's two ways you can do it. Number one, when you're starting your conclusion, it's perfectly okay, especially when you're doing it as a presentation orally, to say in conclusion. That gives the reader or the audience a signal of that you're wrapping things up. But if you don't do that, if your research style isn't that way, then I think it's always good to say thank you at the end. That gives the audience members the opportunity to say, okay, we'll clap. We know that this particular presentation has concluded. Does that make sense to everybody? So you want to start in a very certain place where they know that you're starting. And I think by introducing your name and certainly the title of your presentation, and then ending in a bookend way, saying either in conclusion and finish it off, and then say thank you at the end. That thank you will let them know that you are finished. Sometimes it gets a little awkward because some people, and it isn't just students, it's adults too, will just like stop, and it sounds like you're stopping in the middle of a sentence. You want to cue those audience members into that your presentation has come to a conclusion. Does that make sense to everyone? Good. Um, am I missing anything before I turn it over to questions, Dr. Polly?
Um, just the only thing I would add is it's on the program, but if you're worried about like order, the program is still moving slightly,
Yeah.
just because some people are canceling, but you will go in the order that it's listed. That's just the easiest way to do it, so that if you're wondering, it's not like, oh my God, if I get a seat like first, I get to go first and go, my nerves. It's just in the order. So just get used to that. When you look at the program, you'll be like, all right, I'm third. I just know I'm third, and you don't have to think about it.
Right. Dr. Polly and I will be there. A lot of other NRHC board members will be there. If you see me and you're nervous and you need to be talked off the ledge, don't hesitate to come up and introduce yourself to me, saying, I'm really starting to get nervous, or I feel great about this. I'd like to hear both. We're here to help you. So we'll be walking around a great deal from room to room if we're not moderating. So make sure that you find us and let us know how it's going. So
And
I think at
I
this,
would say
go ahead. I'm sorry.
just to balance out Dr. Martino's like nervous stuff, this is this is actually like a pretty low stakes
Yeah.
environment, because this isn't like class. You're not getting graded on this. This is like an extra experiential learning opportunity where you get to do something, you get to put it on your resume. Nobody's going to be judging you. I mean, if you want to win an award, that's a bonus, but it's not like class where
Right.
you have to worry about your grade, or this is just an extra place you get to present. So the idea is that this should help you get used to presenting for when you actually do have higher stakes, like you're interviewing for a job, or you're trying to get into grad school, or doing the things that actually have higher stakes. So
I'm Italian, so I automatically go to everybody's nervous and
I
crazy.
mean, I get nervous too. I just want you to, get a sense that this
But
is
you're
not
you're
a
you're
stage.
absolutely right. Again, this is a friendly crowd. You get to show off. Think about it that way, right? This is what I've been working on. Let me show you what I've been doing, and be charismatic as you all are, and bubbly about that. So, with that, I'm going to shut up and open it up. If you have a question, you can either put it in the chat if you don't want to say it out loud, or you can raise your hand and I will call on you. So, okay, I have a question in the chat from Alicia. Is there a certain number of slides we should aim for, or is as much as we need? Basically, that's a very good question. It's as much as you need, but you don't want to overdo it. My rule of thumb for that is keep your time, right? You only have 12 minutes, right? So you don't want to put so many slides that you have to go through 30 slides is going to be too many, right? One of our plenary speakers, the first night, Thursday night, has 39 slides, but he also has 90 minutes to talk. So that should give you a sort of idea of where you're going. But that's an excellent question.
And it also doesn't mean that you have to spend equal time on every slide.
Correct.
Sometimes you just have a slide just because you're trying to show an image and it's just going to be 30 seconds. Another slide you may want to really dive into for 5 minutes. So think about your time, what you're doing with your slides.
Right.
Quick question, just to
Please.
clarify, is the time, like the 12 to 15 minutes, the total cumulative time for everybody, or is that for each individual person?
Each individual.
Got it. Okay, that's actually great. I was like, I
Yeah.
don't know how we're gonna
Otherwise,
say
you
it
would have
all.
to be a lot of espressos to get that in, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question from Olivia. Are presenters allowed to ask questions? Yes. Are presenters allowed to ask questions to other presenters when they are not presenting? Yes, that is encouraged. So even though you're on the panel, you're still a part of that audience. So if somebody says something intriguing or you want to ask that, a fellow presenter on your panel a question, please by all means go ahead and do that. Good question. We have 18 of you in here tonight. That's really good. Are you excited to be coming to New Haven? I think it's going to be a really cool conference. And if you don't like pizza, then now's the time to start liking it. It's, great pizza in New Haven. It's also the birthplace of the hamburger. So, there's a lot of cool stuff to do. Okay, couple more questions. I'm going to start with Leah. How long is the Q&A session at the end? Great question, Leah. So the Q&A session is, however, it depends on how much time is left at the end. So, one or two students may go under, one or two students may go over time. We try to keep it so the moderator will part of the moderator's job is to make sure that you're staying on time. So usually the rule of thumb is there's around 10 to 15 minutes for questions at the end. And then I have, yes, Sasha's very excited. Yeah. I have not been to New Haven, so I'm really looking forward to it. Other questions that Dr. Polly or myself can answer. Okay, Alicia, let's see. What shouldn't we include in the presentation? Should we include key points in our research and a little of the lit review? Dr. Polly, you want to take that one?
Huh. I mean, I think it depends. Really depends on the context. You don't, that's a hard one. I'd have to kind of look at the presentation, but if it helps explain if it's part of the evidence that helps explain the outcome and you have room, then I would always say that you should include it. If it seems superfluous to the point you're trying to make, then I would tighten it up. You don't have to use the 12 to 15 minutes. So I wouldn't try to add fluff,
Right.
but you also want to make sure that you're supporting your argument. So when I'm thinking about key points, I'm not a social scientist, so I'm thinking more about a poster presentation. In this case, you're really presenting your thesis, you're supporting evidence, and your conclusion, because this is an academic presentation as opposed to a poster where you can't really get the full argument out,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
I think if you're talking about like your PowerPoint presentation, I think the good rule of thumb is less is more, right? In terms of you don't want to make sure that you're putting everything on PowerPoint, and especially you don't want to have each of those PowerPoint slides full of text. Bullet points are good because no one's going to, you don't want to distract from what you're saying by having the people read it. So you want, again, as Dr. Polly said, it's a balance really depending on your research.
And yes, I mean, you are allowed to have your phones out. Just
Yeah.
make sure they're on silence or, you know.
So Leah asks again, will you know what questions will be asked ahead of time if the student gets one issue? No, we don't know this. We don't, I never know what questions I'm going to ask ahead of time either. So that is just, it's completely organic that way. It unfolds.
I have a question.
Sure.
I was wondering for presenters in general, do they tend to go over like broad like concepts or did they go more into like the analytical details? Like say your presentation or your research has a lot of information. what have you seen that's like the most successful, or what do people tend to prefer? And and if that doesn't make sense, let me know.
No,
Sense.
no, it makes perfect sense. I'm going to let Dr. Polly answer that.
I mean, again, I think it depends how much time you have. Like, if you're, for me, sometimes going into the really, really nitty-gritty details in a 12 to 15-minute presentation sometimes gets to be a lot.
Mhm.
Think of it like this way. If my professor asks me for like a 30-page paper on something, I'm going to kind of really go into detail. If I'm writing a thesis, I'm really going to have to articulate various concepts in different ways. But a 12 to 15-minute presentation is probably you're going to want to, you're almost saying like, it's almost like a poster presentation, except you're doing your 10, 15 minutes as like a not necessarily scripted, but as a full presentation
Yeah.
and not like a somebody comes by, you give them a 5-minute spiel. Think about you're giving the poster presentation instead of as a 5-minute spiel to passersby as a 12 to 15-minute spiel. And so that expands how much and how broad you can include, but you may not be able to include every single piece, but you may summarize it.
Mhm. There's no way, I think, just to build upon that, that you can talk about all of your research. So you want to, what is the gist of your argument, your thesis? What is your supporting evidence? And you can always elaborate on when, if somebody asks you a question.
But what helps me sometimes is, I mean, this is why a lot of academics in English, for example, read their papers because they're dealing with quotes, they're dealing with logic, and they don't want to go too far over. So they time it perfectly like that. And it's a very specific argument. But you could, for example, start with if this is coming from a broader project, you could start by like reading out your project and saying like, "Wow, that took 30 minutes." All right, well, I'm not including all of that.
Right.
So let's see, what do I need to summarize? What seems critical to the argument? What seems like I use that because my professor told me that I needed to articulate X, Y, and Z. But for this, there's no professor giving you an outline. You are trying to, you remember, you're going to have a broad audience. So there are going to be people in the audience who may understand science, who may not understand anything about your topic. And so, what do I need to fill in that's most essential? But I'm not getting a grade for this where it's like my professor said I needed to do X, Y, and Z. And so, if you start with what you have and then see, wow, this is 30 minutes, I need to make around this around half.
Yeah. We have another question from Sasha. Is it a bad idea to present data, charts, and statistics? No, it is not. Again, that depends on your research. And if you think that that data is fundamental to your argument, then you would certainly want to present that. I think that's definitely something you want to do.
I'll just say this, Sasha, just remember that nobody's going to be able to like read the slide super fast. So if you have data on a slide, you're going to want to point out like you're going to want to walk your audience through it.
Yeah.
Not be like, here's my data, because nobody's going to be able to really process it that, tell us what it means.
I think that that's an excellent point, and this goes for all of you, whether you're presenting with hard data or not, or if it's more thematic or interpretational. Your research should tell a story. What is the story that your research is telling? So the times that you can the time that you can narrate it in terms of a story, you're going to reach more people that way. And to Dr. Polly's point that she just mentioned, this is an honors audience, right? So it is an educated audience, but they, again, might not know your specific field that well. Marissa says, hi, I am working with a few co-presenters. Will all three of us be able to present and answer questions as a team? I don't know that for sure. So I can guess that probably they put you on the same panel. So the three of you will work that out with the moderator about how you're going to present. Yeah, I have seen that in the past where people are presenting on the same theme and it's like three presenters. So it really depends on how you put in your abstract and if you're all presenting on that same particular panel.
And if you have three presenters for one 12 to 15-minute presentation and it's an academic presentation, you'll want to organize how, just like you would in a class presentation, what parts you're going to take, how you're going to organize the structure.
Yeah,
But you don't get three times the amount of time if you have
right.
three people on just your topic. Does that
Correct.
make sense, Zoe?
Wait, sorry, I think it cut out for a second, the essential stuff I just
So,
missed.
like, if Zoe, if you sent in an abstract just with your name on it, you're fine. If you sent in an abstract with like four of you that you want to
Yes.
present together, and then yes, you only get that 12 to 15 minutes. You're going to be put on with, so your title, let's just put it this way, your title gets 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Whether or not it's one author or four authors, there are going to be four titles in each presentation, in each panel, sorry.
Yeah.
That's actually really helpful because now I know it's 12 minutes and not like three times the amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll see that when you look at the program, you'll see how the panels are organized. So you'll see it says from 2 to 3:15, and you'll see that you're in Chapel A, and these four presentations are happening, or three presentations, and you'd be like, oh, okay, so it's three, we each have maybe 20 minutes, but we have four, each topic has 15.
Correct. Yeah. Olivia asks, can you address a moderator mid presentation to ask how much time you have left? You can, if that's going to make you feel more, in control of the time, then yes, it's perfectly okay. I would say try to time it and practice it so that you know and you have it down. You don't want to interrupt the rhythm of your presentation. Go ahead, Dr. Polly.
The other thing you can do is, if you're really concerned about that, I would address your moderator beforehand and ask them, say, like, when I have 5 minutes left, can you give me a signal? Maybe they'll like go like this or something, like, so that you don't have to be like, excuse me, how much time do I have left? But you can actually just organize that ahead of time.
Right.
They can like wave a paper up or something so that you can see.
Yeah, usually the moderators will let you know when it's 2 minutes left or 1 minute left or something to that effect. So there's that. Hayden asks, if we go to other panels, can we ask questions? Of course. That's what the whole idea is. Yeah. And Marissa asks, oh, we answered that. So maybe not. Hi, I am working with a few co-presenters. Will all three of us be able to present and answer questions as a team? I think so. So depending on how, if they put you on the same panel, but I think you will be. Other questions or concerns we can address? Okay.
Rachel's question. That depends. It depends how many people come.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've been in places where nobody showed up. Like, okay, I'm presenting to
We all
myself.
have, yeah.
I've been in other ones where there's standing room only, and it's like, wow, what did I do to deserve this? So you never know.
A lot of it depends on. Oh, that's loud. A lot of it depends on what time you get and what's going on at that time, and are your friends who are going with you presenting at the same time? So there's a lot of factors. But we do want you to go to other panels so that we want you to support one another. So if you're not presenting at a certain time, don't skip out and go see the city. You've got Friday for that. Go to the panels and support your colleagues.
On Saturday.
On Saturday, yeah. Other questions? Okay, there is one. Okay, Leah. Sorry to ask, however, if parents wanted to come, would they have to register? They would have to register, I believe. So I will double check. Leah, you and I are at this, we know each other. So let me double check with that. But last I knew, we did have parents register in the past. But I will double check on that for you.
Could you actually send that information out?
I will. Yeah,
Okay.
that's okay. I will make a note of that. We have had parents come in the past, but it doesn't happen very often. So, but I will talk to the board. I'll send them an email right after this, and then we will make sure that we send that out to clarify it for everybody. Okay, so I have Hayden, you have a question specifically for me. You can email me that if you want, right? Hayden, you're one of mine, correct? Yeah, so just email me that. Anybody else? We hope you're all excited. I hope this was helpful for you. If nothing else, look, this is going to be something you can put on your resume. You're going to get a chance to meet a lot of really interesting and fun people. There's a lot we have in store for you. So Saturday is the day is slotted for all of presentations. Please, Thursday night, if you're coming in Thursday night, try to make the speaker. He's a Holocaust survivor. He has a lot of really cool information. He's going to talk about his life in Hungary. And then Friday, we'll have City as Text. So you'll be able to go out into the city. We have a great speaker for City as Text. He's written a book about New Haven and pizza. So he's going to be really dynamic. And then we'll release you into the city. And then we'll have the banquet and then the lunch on Saturday. And then Sunday, there'll be some awards and some leftover presentations as well. So it's going to be really a great weekend. Pray for good weather. It's the Northeast, anything can happen. But speaking for Dr. Polly and myself, we really look forward to seeing you there. We hope this was helpful for you. If you have any other questions, you can certainly let us know, and we will try to get answers for you. Okay? So if it's all right with everybody, I will stop recording.